What should we call Eliot? Our friend? Our buddy? Our compatriot? Let's call him our compatriot. Our possible client.
He's my governor. He's my governor.
Right, your
governor.
governor.
My governor, Eliot Spitzer. And I'll tell you, I've been a fan of Eliot for many years, and I'm not a fan of many politicians. And I know politicians well. I used to do lobbying on the local and federal level, and be involved in politics myself. So yes, I know politicians well.
Well, you know, and,
Eliot is about as good as they come.
And you have a John as a governor. I was a big McGreevy supporter. He turned out to be gay. Put his boyfriend on the state payroll, and somehow that was a big scandal. Then the boyfriend said he wasn't his boyfriend. I don't know. Anyway, he ended up getting married to this other guy. Tell me about that outfit you're wearing, girlfriend.
Oh, this is an outfit I wore while I was working for the escort agency. So I actually did turn tricks in this outfit.
Wow, an ex-hooker. Or at $5,500 an hour.
I wish I got that.
I mean, I'm saying, but I mean,
it was about $350. You know, between $300 and $350, $325.
And you split it with the agency, right?
Yes, yes. But actually, you came out on the bottom because out of your 50%, you had to pay to have your nails done, your makeup done, your hair.
How about travel? How about travel?
You had to pay for your cab fare there and back, which can be very expensive depending on how far you travel.
Eliot paid her round trip.
I was at one of the better brothels, the better escort services in New York City, so we only did Manhattan. But, you know, some of the other ones, you know, you would have to pay cab fare to New Jersey, God us forbid, New Jersey, coming out here, or one of the other 4 boroughs.
Well, imagine this story that broke in the paper. I mean, this was the Daily News. But, you know, and it was written up in the Star and Ledger. I mean, this ring would send people anywhere around the world, London, Paris, Los Angeles, New York. He not only paid $5,500, but he also paid her round-trip train ticket, her cab...
Is it always the same one?
Her cab fare. No, apparently he said, remind me which one this one was. So apparently they're implying that he was a frequent customer. He gave her $5,500 for this event and a $1,700 deposit with the agency for the next date. He was a known client. It's incredible because here was a man that had sent some of the biggest people in the world to jail. I mean, billion-dollar settlements out of New York Stock Exchange. The rates range from $500 to $5,500. He was paying the top. And then they made a big thing about safe or unsafe and being gay. I thought in terms of condom or no condom. But on the TV show on Tucker Carlson on MSNBC, he had the head of the Bunny Ranch on, and they said, well, what unsafe mean to you? He said, well, it probably meant she brought a ball gag or whip or chains or restraints or possibly drugs. But then he said with drugs you couldn't get on an airplane. She didn't take an airplane, she went on train. So it's so funny because you know what's so sad about this is it's considered a scandal. And even the USA Today reporter said, well, when you deal with prostitution, you get into exploitation of women. Well, sure, when you get kidnapped and forced into
slave labor.
Exactly, when you get kidnapped to a foreign country and made to work in a basement turning tricks for the pimp that has holding your passport. But at $5,500 an hour, I find it very difficult to wrap it sounds to me like male exploitation rather than exploitation of women.
Actually, the male clients that I saw they worked on Wall Street. They inherited money. They had so much money they didn't know what to do with it. I'll tell you that I have seen houses in Manhattan on the Upper East Side that are houses. I mean, they own the building and several floors, and just the riches and the artwork and you know the things that I have seen, you know, are just absolutely incredible. And you know that $300 was nothing to them. It was like $3.
But this is
nothing.
This is what they were saying about the people that had paid $5,500. But when they made the point, one guy said it was arrogance. One columnist, and he said they get so used to being kowtowed to. I mean, but yet Spitzer they took credit cards, bank transfers. They let him use another name, but there is a recklessness involved in all this. Here is a man, and he really risked his public career. He risked everything. And so you get into this strange male tradition. That
Of
men
what,
do,
being a daredevil?
being, like I said, the same thing about Bill Clinton. I mean, risking your whole career, your marriage, everything, for what? A fling with an overweight Monica Lewinsky? Or...
Now, what I would say is that doesn't say so much about the, that these men are risk takers, or they, they're gonna, take this risk, because men in power, politicians or otherwise, have been doing this behavior for as long as we have recorded history. They're not doing anything out of the norm for human behavior. What's abnormal is the Daily News, putting public shame, the face of public shame,
I wonder if that
on the paper. What has changed, let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
What has changed is that now we have this media machine that nationally is publicizing this stuff. It used to be out of respect for the person's position, you turned your head and didn't say anything.
And his wife and family.
Yes, and his wife and family. Out of respect for the wife and the family, you wouldn't speak of it in public.
Right.
You would give them that respect. That in today's culture is gone. So the shame, I think, is of the news media.
I couldn't agree with you more, because, for a man that brought billion-dollar settlements from the Wall Street tycoons, if you spend $1 million, I'll have you file it, and you'll have 3 cocktails in a bar and get behind the wheel of a car, and if I have the law enforcement on my side, they have the FBI working. I didn't know the FBI investigated this stuff. I mean, this all began, we're worried about our phones being tapped and the government looking at what we're doing. These were not massive transfers of wealth. I went to the bank and took a $3,000 cash amount, and I said, what point do you have to report it? It used to be $5,000, now it's $10,000. Like if you go to Canada and say you had more than 10, I think it's now $10,000. I didn't know that they watched $2,500 transfers, because they said that it's watching for fraud, that the last thing they had in mind was prostitution. Well, I'm sorry. When you make multi-billion-dollar settlements on Wall Street, I have a feeling there's a story behind the story.